All right. So it's been a busy, really last 48 hours when this all, picked up. Just to give you some background, the first call that we received with an offer was last Friday, and it was, not something that we would consider. Went through the game, went through the weekend, and then really picked up Tuesday, like Tuesday mornings when teams got involved, started calling. And that's when we discussed internally as a group, would we do this? If we do it, what's acceptable? And we kind of put a value on it. And then at that point, we worked through it. We talked to the teams. A couple of teams didn't have first-round picks, that we thought, in that area was probably the right area for Christian with regarding everything. So it complicated it that there wasn't a first-round pick to be had. So we had to figure out what's the equivalent of a first-round pick if that's the case. A couple of teams did have a first-round pick. They never got there. It was never an option for them. So it was going to be a combination of something. What that was very fluid. That was really the talk over the last 48 hours. So with that, we got to a point where two teams were pretty serious, went back and forth with them, and then it just got to a point where we thought this is what was best for the organization moving forward, that this is the right move. It's a tough move because when you have someone of Christian's stature in the community, the type of player he is, the type of person he is, it's really tough to move on from him. A great guy, really handled it well. But really for the organization, moving forward, we felt it was the right decision and the right value for what we have planned moving forward. So with that, I'll open up to questions.
Scott, you guys are 1-5. You just traded away your best player. I mean, a lot of people would consider this tanking to get a draft pick for next year. Do you consider it tanking?
No, I think what we've had to figure in what's best for the organization, like I was saying. Our focus is still going on and going out and competing every weekend. We expect to win. And that was coach's mindset this weekend. The NFL is a business where you lose guys, whether it's injuries, trades, whatever happens. The expectation of winning never changes. Those guys in the locker room fight too hard. They work too hard every day. So we owe it to them. That's our expectation as an organization, is to go out and win every game.
How do you tell those guys that you're trying to win when you trade away your best player?
That's the tough part. I'm not trying to tell them anything when we do that. We're doing what's best for the organization. What we would tell them is, hey, the expectations haven't changed. We're going to compete. Nothing changes about Tampa this week. So that's what we would tell them. But I'm not trying to send a message by doing this, but that's the expectation.
Trading current assets for future assets, that obviously impacts the long-term future. But have you been given any clarity on your long-term future here?
My job is just to come in, do the job, what's best for the organization every day. I'm not worried about my job, Coach Wilkes' job, anyone's job in the building. Our job is to get it right for the organization for the long term.
Scott, what do you think Christian's legacy is with Tampa?
I think it's special. I think he was like I was saying earlier, he's an impactful guy. Just that he's a special guy in this community. He's an absolute warrior as a player. He's everything that you want from a makeup standpoint. It's kind of the guy we look for. That's why it's so hard to move on from a guy like him, because it's, I understand, all the factors that go into this. That was a lot of the discussion we had, is like, why do we move on from this? And why we moved on is we had to do what's best for the organization. How do we get the most value? How do we build this team with the vision that we have moving forward? So that's why we did it, but it's hard.
What's your favorite on-field memory of him?
You know what? Everybody's going to go to the games, but I think practice, just to see the way he practices every day, finishes every run. We actually had to, pull him back. He's the guy that would run, 60 yards downfield. And he's an absolute perfectionist, competitor. So it's probably more the way he approaches every day than actual game play.
Scott, was there communication between you and Christian, when things started, you started to get offers last Friday through Tuesday?
I did talk to Christian on Monday, after the team meeting, pulled him in, just gave him a quick update, because there's more rumors, especially about a lot of our guys for some reason, but there were more rumors out there, and there was nothing really on the table. There was the one offer. It was one that we didn't consider at the time. I told him that. I told him where it stood. I said, you're hearing a lot of noise. Here's what's real. Here's what's not real. And we just had a very honest, 5-7 minute conversation. And then after that, it picked up, like I said, on Tuesday. That's when other teams got involved. And talked to his agent more than him during this time because he was locked in on Tampa. Once he gets into game week, he doesn't want to hear about the noise. So we communicated through the agent. His agent's an awesome guy. We talked a lot over the last 48 hours and kept him in touch where we're at. And so then I talked to Christian last night. Once we was traded, I gave him a call. It was like 10:30, 10:45 at night. He's a guy that goes to bed early, but he was up. Had a really good talk with him. Thanked him for everything. He loves Charlotte. He's excited for the opportunity. But I'll let him really talk about what he wants to talk about. But he was very professional, and I really appreciate him.
Did he tell you a couple or a handful of teams that he would prefer to go to?
No, they never gave us a handful of teams. They did like the handful of teams, but he never said, I want to play here, here, and here. No.
And how many hard offers did you end up getting?
3 hard offers, and then a couple like test the water type offers where they threw their hat in the ring, and it was like, no, we're not going to go there. There were a lot of just like mid-level, hey, sniffing to see where it's at, really, more than anything.
What are you telling teams who call about Brian Burns, Derek Brown, Shaq Thompson, DJ?
Philosophically, we always listen. We have gotten calls, and we've said no to all of them. I think there's certain players on this team. We like the young core of our team. We're building. This isn't a situation where we're trying to sell. We're trying to add players to this already really good young mix. Guys like Burns, guys like Brown. We'll always listen, but I want those guys here. These are guys that we win with moving forward.
You said back in off-season that you were trying to build this roster where you could drop a quarterback in
Yes.
and win. Where do you think that is now?
That hasn't changed. I think where our defense is, there's a lot of good young pieces on the defensive line. Adding J.C. Horn, having Chin back there, adding Woods to the group. There's a lot on defense to build with. There's things we need to tighten up a little wide, third down wise. But from a personnel, I like where we're at on defense. We've rebuilt the offensive line, which is the most important thing when you're bringing in a young quarterback. We have DJ Moore. We've got some other young receivers that are developing right now. So that hasn't changed. We're still building, moving forward, so we can drop that quarterback in and go.
Scott, last week when David Tepper talked, he said that it is important that this team going forward manages its limited resources. In your opinion, does this trade of Christian McCaffrey align with Mr. Tepper's vision, agenda, goals, and essentially what he said last week?
Yeah, we've had some good talks about what we want to do, how we want to build this. Obviously, we always want to build through the draft. We'll supplement through free agency and some trades. But acquiring some picks was important to help get to the blueprint, basically, we have in place moving forward.
I know you said just of the players that you wanted to keep, but are you saying that before the trade deadline, that's it, or will there possibly be additional?
You never know, but I know there's players on this team that I really don't want to trade. I know this organization does not want to trade. They would have to take something astronomical, but I think moving forward, we like where we're at, and we like our young players. I'm not going to go into it, but yeah, we're not. They're not going to go anywhere.
Would you be more open to some guys a little older that wouldn't necessarily be what you described as the young core?
It just comes down to the individual and what the plan is for that this year, next year, the year after. Are they in the plans, or is this a person that we can grow with and get to the Super Bowl, which is our goal? Is this the person that can help us get there? If they're not, then maybe we'll listen. If they are guys that can help us do that, they'll be here.
Scott, does a move like this put more pressure on you in the front office to giving up somebody like Christian to make sure that you hit on these extra picks?
Yeah, but I think we always think that way. I mean, that doesn't really change. Like, we always do the best that we can. Love the scouts that we have. Dan and Pat and Samira, all those guys are awesome. Our road scouts do a great job. We just have to make the right decisions. And this puts us in a position to be successful. Now we have to execute that.
Scott,
looks like you'll have probably a top 5 pick unless things really change in 2023. So how likely do you think it is that you'll use whatever that first round draft pick is on a quarterback?
I don't want to go into specifics right now. It's important that we develop the guys we have on our roster. We like some of our young guys. We just drafted Matt last year. But obviously that's a position that's, you have to have a quarterback to win this league. And so until we have that position, until that's set, we're always going to be looking. But we like some of the guys we have. We develop them, but that will be a focus as well.
With the way your quarterback situation is going this year, what's the likelihood that either Baker or Sam would be back?
There's still a lot of season left. We'll see how it goes. Obviously, Baker's out right now with the ankle. Sam's just coming back from the ankle. There's a lot to be written still in that area.
Scott, we haven't talked to you, I don't think, since Matt Rule got fired.
Yeah.
So I wonder your thoughts on that, how involved you were in that process, and so on.
Yeah. Well, I know Mr. Tepper spoke to you guys about a lot of things, so I'll let him talk about the overall picture of the organization. I can tell you my relationship with Matt Rule was great. Great friend, enjoyed every day being around him. So I have nothing but positive things to say about the person. Loved him. Didn't know him at first when I got here. It takes a while, but you learn to appreciate him. The sense of humor, his family. So nothing but great things.
Will you have a role in picking the next coach?
Yeah, I mean, with Tepper, and based on who's here and what we're doing, absolutely, I think. But Mr. Tepper will make those decisions.
To follow up on Ellis's earlier question, I think you guys came into the week with like 9 draft picks over the next 2 years. Now you have 14. How important was that with Robbie and Christian to kind of replenish that grouping as opposed to maybe just going after what looked good right away?
Yeah, I think having multiple draft picks, just gives you more shots at it. You're always going to miss on some guys. It just gives you a better chance to hit on guys all throughout the draft. And so the more shots we have, the better it is. That's kind of our philosophy, like I was saying, build through the draft. So obviously that's our currency. That's what's valuable to us.
Scott, obviously this offseason you guys made an effort to rebuild the offensive line. That's something that you can kind of tick off going forward for the next few years at least. When you look at the future of the team and you trade somebody like Christian McCaffrey, do you have like a plan for what it looks like what the roster looks like next year, then what it looks like in 24, then 25? Like, do you plan it out that far in advance, or is it just kind of the next year moving forward?
Yeah, no, we know who's under contract. Like our offensive line's all under contract, next year. A lot of our defense, I think it's like 18 or 19 of our 22 starters are under contract going into next year. So it's not just hey, this is what's going on. I like this guy. Let's do it. There's a plan in place over the course of 2 and 3 years, and we do different color coding things. Our building block guys, rotational guys, those type of things. So we do those planning. We do have planning like that.
Outside of the offensive line, do you feel like this offense is like historically statistically bad right now? I mean, do you feel like it needs to be completely revamped outside of that offensive line?
I think there's always a combination of reasons why. DJ Moore is one of the better receivers in the NFL. We have a good offensive line this year. I mean, you see big pockets where we can run the ball, we're moving the line of scrimmage. There's pieces there. I'm surprised kind of where we're at right now. I think there's a lot of room for improvement. It takes, offenses sometimes a year or two to get going, but you can't deny where it's at statistically.
Scott, more of a philosophical question here, but a former NFL GM once said it doesn't matter where you pick them, it matters how they play. I'm curious, how much of that statement do you agree with, and how does that apply to where the Carolina Panthers are right now?
100%. I think people get so focused. You have a better hit rate sometimes when you're picking higher because there's more known. It's a great player. There's a lot of 6th and 7th rounders that make up the core starters around the NFL. So that's where your scouts come in and play. That's where having those extra shots down there comes into play. You can find players throughout the draft if you're doing it right. You can find them in free agency after the draft. So there's a lot of ways to do it. But so I guess to answer your question, that's important.
Scott, to the earlier question about what you would tell your fan base, what do you tell Steve Wilkes when you trade away your best player?
We do what's best for the organization. It's not about like just one guy. It's not about me. It's not about Wilkes. We're doing what's best for the organization long term. And what I would say is expectations haven't changed. We're going out to compete every day. You know, like I said, we could allow someone to an injury, to a trade, whatever it may be. That doesn't change our focus on winning and going out and competing. So that's what I would say. Just let it play out on the field.
Before Robbie was traded, he said that he spoke to you before he talked to the media.
Yeah.
Then he's traded 12 hours later. Was there a conversation before that about, hey, look, this is what we have going, and you might want to publicly acknowledge this, acknowledge your behavior, or what went down in that 12-hour span?
Yeah, I don't want to, share too many private conversations in there. I always liked Robbie. I went down and sat with him, late in the fourth quarter of that game. We talked about different things. He was frustrated. But I think we found something that helped him, put him in a good spot, put our team in a good spot with some draft picks. And I think it was a win-win for both of us, considering the circumstance.
Do you expect to win a lot of more games this season?
Our goal every game is to go out and win. Whether it's we'll let it play out on the field, but that doesn't change our mindset.
Obviously, sports radio, social media lit up when the trade news broke. What do you say to fans who say there's nothing else to be excited about? What do you say to fans who are planning to come to the game on Sunday?
I say we have a really good young core that we talked about. This is a growing team. It's a developing team. Yeah, Christian is a dynamic player. He's one of the best players in the NFL. I mean, we're not going to hide that. I mean, he is who he is. But what it does do, it allows us to grow going forward. And, watch these guys. Watch them develop. Watch, Dante and Chuba and Blackshear. Watch these guys grow. It's a great opportunity for them to take that step, be along, for the ride.
On your trade chart or whatever, did a 2, 3, 4, and a 5, what did that equal?
It came pretty close when you add up to it. It didn't actually hit the 1, but it was very close to it. And so at that point,
Close to
yeah,
a single 1.
Yeah, so exactly. So, the hard part, 1 was the expectation. That's a lot of draft capital that we got. Had we just gotten that 1, you would have 1 shot and you have to hit on that player. This one, we can spread it out a little bit more.
Where do you sort of anticipate that second round pick being? I mean, the 49ers might go a long way.
It's funny, that was part of the discussion. I think they took the stance that I think they were 14th in the waiver wire right now. I think they're 3-3. And I took the stance, hey, listen, you guys are going to be somewhere between 25 and 32, with Christian there. And so, that's just part of the negotiations. And, John and Prague were awesome to work with, 2 really smart guys and, competitive guys. But it's fun. We found a common ground that worked for both. They got a great player, and we have an opportunity to build.
What take a couple more questions. Can you say what kind of was the tipping point like? What did they add to finally make it happen?
So I think the tipping point, you always know when you're at the end of a negotiation where that breaking point is. You can tell. You can tell in their voices. You can tell in what's being offered. I got to it. One team, I said, okay, let's get down to it. I don't want this to drag on anymore. Christian, you're just stringing along a player. Let's just get this done. And so this is late last night. I want to say like 9:30, 9:45. So let's just go in. Give me your best offer. They gave me the best offer. The other team could up it a little bit by where their pick was. They did that, and so we took that. That was kind of like the best and final on both. It was close, but San Francisco won out.
Thinking there, though, that you have the power now, if you need to get up to the 1 to get a player you might want next year, that this gives you that flexibility?
It provides a lot of options, yes, with that amount of picks. And if we don't have to move up, it gives us a lot of shots on players in a pretty good spot. I think we have 4 picks in the first 3 rounds, and we feel like those should be, guys that are coming in and helping us next year.
Scott, was the timing important? And I have a quick follow-up. Because you didn't want to put Christian out there Sunday when you're close on these deals and risk him getting injured?
That was a factor. Every time you go out there on the field, that was a consideration. That's something we talked about. You could even be in practice. a guy could just roll into you, and all of a sudden, then what do you have? So those are all discussions. In the end, it was just about the time and what's best for all involved. The teams involved wanted to make a deal. We wanted to see if we can get what we needed out of this in order to make a deal. And once we found that spot, we decided to do it.
And then Dave said last week that he was going to look for better balance between giving a coach final roster say versus GM. Was that a frustrating process for you, and was it hard for you to do your job with Matt having that privilege?
First of all, Matt's one of the easiest guys to work with. Yeah, they're very honest conversations. He only knows one way to go. So I enjoyed my relationship there. As with everything, it's about collaboration. We always talk about 53. A lot of times that matters when it comes to contracts and, just those little semantics. When it comes down to it, it's being on the same page, having the same vision, and doing what's best for the organization.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.